This whiteboard animation introduces you to the concept of a safety plan. Sometimes a safety plan is called a coping plan, Plan B, crisis plan, and many other names. In this whiteboard animation, it will use the term safety plan. Now, in preparation of a safety plan, you need to create a safe environment before a crisis hits. For example, if you have access to firearms, then you need to take steps to make access to the firearms as inconvenient as possible, as difficult as possible, as challenging as possible, as hard as possible, or ideally not possible at all. Especially in the case of firearms, you may want someone you trust to remove them for you, so to reduce the risk of tempting you or triggering you. So, what is the concept of a safety plan? Life can get stormy sometimes for all of us. Sometimes it may feel like when it rains, it pours. Worse, while it pours, we find ourselves in the middle of a lightning and thunderstorm. A safety plan is like a needed lifesaver, or in this whiteboard animation, it is like a lighthouse offering directions as to what to do in a crisis. Let's take a look at how to organize a safety plan. The first component of a safety plan is to identify your early warning signals that things could potentially get worse. Sometimes we do not know we are in a crisis until it is too severe or too late. The idea is to identify your warning signs as early as possible. This way, it buys you time to act, and also you can act while the symptoms are less severe, which is easier to manage, and hopefully prevent the symptoms from escalating to a more severe form. Early warning signals are obviously very individualized to you. There are different ways to organize warning signs on your safety plan. One way to do it is to organize the warning signals into different types of experiences. For example, warning signs for you could be certain kinds of thoughts, like stuck repeating thoughts that get in the way of your life. Now, it is obviously there is a big difference between you experiencing a stuck repeating thought for 1 minute once a day versus a stuck repeating distressing thought for 2 hours 5 times a day. Or maybe you notice thoughts are speeding up and they are coming to you like a flood. Sometimes it does not have to be thoughts, it can be images. Thus, another experience could be disturbing images like a flashback, which can start a chain reaction for you that can lead to a crisis. Besides thoughts and images, you may experience a certain emotion that you know is an early warning signal, like depressed or elevated mood, or being irritable, numbness, etc. Usually thinking and emotions affect our behaviors. So another category of warning signal experience could be your behaviors as noted by you and or someone you trust. For example, like you are staying in bed more than usual and people who know you are nagging you to get out of bed. Or you may notice you lost interest in things you used to like to do and you just stopped doing them. Or you may notice you just want to stay home more than usual and other people are noticing it. And it may start to get in the way of you living a life. It can go the other way, of course, like you notice you are on a shopping spree and you are getting into debt, and other people are expressing concern. Or you or someone else notice that you are starting many projects and not finishing them. Or maybe people are telling you that you are talking 200 miles per hour while you normally talk at 100 miles per hour. That is, you normally talk fast, but not that fast. One last category of experience that can serve as a potential warning signal is bodily sensations, like rapid heartbeat, certain constant tensing of muscles, certain sense of heaviness in the chest area or in the legs, dullness, numbness, certain feelings in the gut, or certain feeling in breathing, and so on. So to sum it up, instead of listing your early warning signals in no particular order, one way to organize your early warning signals is to divide them into different categories, like thoughts, images, emotions, behaviors, and body sensations. Now, after you identify your early warning signs, you may want to identify internal coping skills. These are the coping skills you can do by yourself. You want to do these skills first before you try other coping strategies that involve others. Now, of course, if your symptoms are very severe, you may end up calling your provider and/or your support network immediately instead. In terms of organizing your safety plan, let's see one way of organizing your internal coping skills. The first type of coping skill involves a sense of mastery or accomplishment. It can be doing a puzzle, knitting something for yourself or for someone, learning a new piece of music, reading a chapter in a book, walking 1 mile, doing 20 push-ups, playing a video game you're good at, and so on. The second type of coping skill involves giving you a sense of fun, a sense of enjoyment. Obviously, without saying, it has to be something healthy and legal. For example, see a movie you enjoy, listen to music you enjoy, play with your pet, and so on. Now, in the ideal case, which is not shown in this animation, is to combine the two types of internal coping skills, that is, combining mastery and enjoyment if possible. An example could be knitting, as mentioned already, as it can bring enjoyment and a sense of accomplishment. Now the third type of internal coping skill, we'll just call it other, and it may not involve a sense of mastery or enjoyment. For example, going through your hope kit, which is discussed later in a different animation, or the use of coping cards. Briefly, a hope kit is something that contains items that are tangible that reminds you of the reasons for living. Coping cards are cards that has a problem situation and the steps to handle the situation. These cards can be index cards, a small piece of paper, a small laminated piece of paper, and so on. This is often something you can work on with your therapist or other mental health providers. An example of a simple coping card could be one side of the card states, feeling overwhelmed at the task I have to do. And the other side of the card states, break down the task into small chunks. Or it could just say, elephant joke, where the elephant joke is, how do you eat an elephant? And the answer is, a little bit at a time. Another example could be on one side of the card it says, why I am not a failure. And either on the same side of the card or the flip side of the card, it could say, I have a master's degree in computer science, I raised 3 kids, I speak 3 languages fluently, I made it through previous crises before. After you identified and organized your internal coping skills, let's move on to external distractions, where you purposely put yourself in an external environment where you feel safe, where the temptation to get yourself in trouble will lessen. For example, you may decide to go to a local coffee shop and read, or maybe go to a local pizza place with some of your friends. At this point, the people you are with do not know you are in a crisis or approaching a crisis. If external distraction is not working or is not appropriate for whatever reason, you can move to people who are in your support network. Thus, in your safety plan, you would have a section that contains contact information of the people in your support network. When you contact these people, you can tell them you are approaching a crisis, in a crisis, or the symptoms are getting quite severe. The last item in the safety plan is contact numbers of professional mental health providers and mental health agency whom you can call in a crisis. If the symptoms you are experiencing spike and you do not have the time or the ability to try the other coping skills, then you need to contact the people in this section of the safety plan immediately. After you are finished organizing a safety plan, you need to go through all the items, except the warning signals, and ask yourself honestly, what is the likelihood of you doing the items when the warning signals are kicking in? 50% likelihood, 80% likelihood, 90% likelihood, 99% likelihood? Preferably, you want the percentage to be as high as possible, like 90%. If it is low, like 50%, you have to ask what you and your mental health providers can do to increase the percentage. If after some work the percentage still remains low, then it may be better to cross off the item. Now the exception is the professional provider contact information, since it is the last line of defense. It is better to have a few items that have a high likelihood of you doing than many items of low likelihood of you doing. So, to do a quick summary, do what you can do to create a safe environment before a crisis hits. And when doing a safety plan, a way to organize it is to divide it into sections. For example, warning signals, internal coping skills, external distractions, supportive network, professional providers. Before this animation ends, look up coping cards on the internet, and you will find many resources and ideas. Some of you have smartphones. If you have a smartphone, you can look at MY3, which is an app that has a safety plan that is slightly different than the one presented in this animation. You can also check out the Virtual Hope box, which has coping cards under its coping tools. Hope you find this presentation informative and useful.